All right, welcome everybody. Eugene Hughes Motorized. Today's video, let's get this out of the way, is sponsored by Vevor. They asked me to review their 140 amp stick welder for them here. And right off the bat, I'm going to give it thumbs up. It's a good, capable little welder. Would I recommend this for those of you who are hobbyists, those of you who ride motorized bikes and who want to make little goodies to modify their bikes and customize it? Yes, but there's an asterisk next to that, and I'll recommend it for any welder, okay? So a majority of us who get started in the hobby, we don't have a lot of money, and this is an entry-level beginner welder. This isn't a professional level welder, but once you learn the tricks of stick welding, you can do some good work with this little welder here, and you can weld thin metals. This here is 16 gauge tubing, and I did some butt welds on it. I ground it down just to check and see how good of a job I did, and I did fair. I need a little bit more practice with this here, but I absolutely, I'm quite the beginner when it comes to stick welding here. But using this machine here, I've convinced myself you can do some good work with an entry-level welder like this here. This is an under $80 welder. I got the link down below. There's a discount code. Put that in there. If you're interested, check that out. I give this a thumbs up, okay? What do you get for $80, okay? This is not a pro level welder, it's just not, okay? This here is going to be good for steel up to 1/4 of an inch maximum, okay? So, you know, like I said, it's not a super heavy duty welder. And as well, if you need to do really 1/4 inch steel a lot and heavier, you're going to want to go at least with one of their bigger welders, okay? They do cut corners on this here in order to get the price down low. Now let's go over what you get here with this welder here. Well, you get the welder itself. It's adjustable. Let's turn this on. It goes from 30 amps, which would be enough to weld if you wanted to build a gas tank for your little motorized bike here. You can dial that down and you use a thinner rod, a 1/16 inch 6013 rod is what I would recommend. I did some tests on 22 gauge steel. And yes, I need a little bit more work to get it, but with practice, I know I'll get there, okay? So we can go down as low as 30 amp, down as low as 30 amps and as high as 140 amps, okay? That will go from like a 1/16 inch rod up to a 1/8 inch rod. It's kind of pushing it with the 1/8 inch rod, but I've laid some beads with this here on using 1/8 inch rods, and it did fine here, okay? You're not going to weld all day long with this here. It does have a duty cycle, and I think it's like a 15% duty cycle. So, you know, you're not going to be welding for hours on end here. I've done a lot of welding with this here, and I got better than a 15% duty rating out of it, and it never cut out on me. So let's give it that here, okay? It has a, let's push the button, and you've got the hot start. I just bumped that up to 100. That gives it an extra pulse of energy when you first start. And those of you who are newcomers, like me, you're going to find you have a hard time getting it to start. That little scratch start, there's a trick to it. I'm getting a lot better at it, but it used to be every time that rod would get near my base metal, it would just start and just, you'd see a little spark and it would stick. And the whole rod would just heat up and I'd have to disconnect it and start over again here. Very frustrating, but you go through that here, okay? So that's the hot start feature, and then it has a setting for arc force. I went ahead and bumped that up to 50. You got to play with it, okay? Arc force, I'm not going to get too detailed about it here, but that's as to how much it pushes it, and your gap with your rod there. If you get a little bit high on the gap there, this here will adjust the voltage and the amperage to try and keep your arc going. It's very critical with stick welding that you maintain the gap. So this is an art form using these here, okay? With any welder. Those of you who go for the cheap $90 Harbor Freight flux core welder, you'll find that out too. You got to take your time and develop the skill, okay? And if you're going to be welding on your own bike, anything that's going to be critical to your safety, get someone who knows welding to check your work and give you some tips. I'm telling you, check it, okay? You just don't do this blindly, not knowing what you're doing. It's too risky. Back to the welder. Okay, so those are the settings there. It's got a hot stapler on it where you can do welding on plastic, as they call it here. And that is it. So you've got your positive and your negative terminal here. Let's turn this off. So it's a stick welder. You come with the sticks. Sticks are 12, 14 inches long here. They come in different diameters. It goes on what they call the working pliers. So you've got the stinger. Your welding rod goes into it like that. You have the working clamp here, which goes to your workpiece. Let's say we're going to be welding on this little steel piece here. Okay, so the stinger with the electrode is plugged into the positive, and this here would be what they call DC EP. It's a DC welder, electrode positive. We got there. That's the way you're going to get the most penetration out of this welder, out of any welder here, okay? And then you can swap it over and put the electrode into the negative terminal, and you'll get a little bit shallower penetration. If you're going for thinner metal and you don't need a lot of penetration, you can do that. You want to use the correct rod. That's another video in and of itself here. Check out my other YouTube channel, The Metal Fab Shop. I'll put the link down below there. Check it out there, and I'll go into a lot more detail on stick welders, and as well a little bit more detail on this welder here, okay? The quality of the stinger is certainly adequate for what you're doing here. It's got a good strong spring on it, a good grip. The cables are at least 7 foot long on it. They're certainly heavy duty enough for the job. The ground clamp isn't the best. That's kind of one area where I guess they went more economical on in order to keep the price point here. They didn't put a deluxe ground clamp on it. So watch your ground clamp. Be careful with it. Mine started to bend a little bit, and I pushed the sleeve up a little bit higher, and I just make it a point to grip it a little bit closer to the pivot, and it works absolutely fine. But if you're going to keep it around for a long time, you're going to wind up replacing the ground clamp here and go for a better ground clamp situation here. It's 110 and 220 volts, and you've got about a 5-foot power cord here, 110 volt. You want at least a 15, 20 amp circuit breaker on whatever circuit you're going to be plugging this little machine into. And it's also got the 220 volt connector, which the cord just plugs into, and then you can unplug the dryer in your garage, plug this bad boy in, and you're going to get a little bit better results here running this off of 220. I ran it both. It ran fine with that. Okay, so like I said, thumbs up on the welder here. You're going to need to just burn. I've got a whole bunch of just scrap pieces of steel that I just started welding together here and making a bunch of ugly welds. And then, as you can see, I started getting a lot prettier welds here and here, and we're good to go. Okay, so let's give it a little quick go over. What welding rods do you need here, okay? I want to go over just the ones that I've got in my hand here, and I'll go over what the applications are here, okay? 6011 rod. This is a 1/8 inch rod. This is about as big as a little machine like this can handle. You're going to want to run at least 130 amps and the like, or even max 120 to maximum amps on this machine here to run this here. You need a lot of power for this here, and you got to work your way up to use this here. This stuff here is very violent, as the welders call it. It makes a lot of splatter. It kind of burns in. You get a lot of penetration. Okay, so you're not going to be welding your thin tubing on your bicycle frame with this stuff here. You'll just obliterate. A very experienced welder might be able to do some stuff with that on a bicycle frame, but it's using a sledgehammer when a little fine tack hammer is what you really need to do the job here. So here's a couple of other rods that I've got in my arsenal here. The 6013 is a good beginner's rod, as well as the 7018 is another good beginner's rod. They don't penetrate as deep as the 6011, meaning you're not going to be burning holes so easy with them here. The 6013, there's a little trick. You can swap, let me get this out of the way. You can swap your electrodes and make the electrode, the stinger, plug into the negative, and you'll get less penetration and you'll be less likely to burn a hole into your metal there, okay? So that's something to think of here. What I recommend you get, if you want to have just an all-around shop welder here, get you some 6011 in 3/32 inch diameter. You're going to want to run this here between 60 and 90 amps. Get you some 6013 in 1/16 inch diameter, and as well 3/32 inch diameter. The 1/16 inch diameter, you're going to want to run maybe 20 to 40 amps here, and as well with the 6013, you can swap the electrodes here and make your stinger or your working plier here connect to the negative and run basically DC electrode negative and get shallower penetration. You'll be less likely to burn a hole in your metal using that there. The 7018, you're going to want to run electrode positive. The same with the 6011. The 7018, get you some 3/32 inch diameter rods there. I don't think, I know there's probably 1/16 inch diameter ones, but why mess with that? Go for the 6013 in the 1/16 inch diameter, as well the 3/32. Get you 3/32 7018, 3/32 6011, and if you really need to do some big stuff, thicker metal, get you some 1/8 inch 6011 rod there. There's a whole host of information on weld.com, on their YouTube channel, about your stick selection. There's a science behind it here, but if you stick with the 6013 and the 7018 with this little welder here, you're going to be fine. If you like the video, give me a thumbs up. There's a subscribe button down there below. Don't forget, we got more information on this little welder here and welding in general on my other channel, the Metal Fab Shop. Thumbs up if you like it. Click subscribe. Thanks for watching.